How's it going, everyone? How are you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Before we get into my Chelsea versus Everton predictions, I want you guys to go to the comment section down below. Let me know your thoughts, your predicted / preferred lineups, your thoughts on how Chelsea should approach this game, and your final score predictions. And while you're down there, hit that like and subscribe button. And let's get right into it. For the player news for Everton, they are missing 5 pretty key players. I'm going to be honest, players that could have easily started in this game. They're missing Baumann with an Achilles injury. They're missing Coleman with a hamstring injury. Lucas Digne with an ankle ligament injury. Fabian Delph with a hamstring injury. And James Rodriguez, who was a scratch today, day before the game, with a calf injury. Like I said, 5 players who could easily have started this game, especially James Rodriguez. I feel like would have been a shoot-in to start this game, and Lucas Digne. The rest of them maybe wouldn't have started the game, but regardless, 5 players who could have been in the first team for this upcoming game. For Chelsea, we are still missing Hakim Ziyech after his hamstring injury during the Leeds game. And most recently, we lost Hudson-Odoi to a hamstring injury. Apparently, he suffered it in training. It's a similar sort of hamstring injury, and unfortunately, they're both going to be down for around 2 weeks at least. And I hope they're able to come back 100%. We don't just try to force them in the lineup or anything like that. But Christian Pulisic, speaking of hamstring injuries, apparently had a bit of a tweak midweek, and that's why he didn't make an appearance against Krasnodar. But according to Lampard, he's good to go for this match. Whether he's able to start or on the bench, I'm not 100% on. I'm going to assume that means he can start, and that's why I included him in my lineup. But I'm just going to stick to what Lampard said and hope that he's 100% and is really able to play in this game without, chance of re-injuring himself. But speaking of lineups, let's get into Everton's. I went with their usual 3-4-3. Jordan Pickford in goal. For their 3 defenders, I went with Mina, Keane, and Godfrey. For their midfielders, on the left, I went with Bernard. Their 2 center mids, Alan and Decore. And on the right, Davies. For their front 3, I went with Richarlison on the left, Dominic Calvert-Lewin up top, and Alex Iwobi on the right. Some maybe interesting picks. I went with the younger Davies in this one. Bernard, who maybe has been a bit out of favor because of how informed other players were. But I feel like they should get a chance in this one with Everton's just a bit strapped for wingers. So I think they will likely get some kind of start. And Iwobi has been doing well, so I think pushing him up could benefit Everton on the counter. Now for subs, they have Losil, Gordon, Holgate, Tosin, Gomez, Sigurdsson, and Kenny. Gordon is the youngest here. I believe he's 19. I included him because he adds another winger option for them. Not many players for them have really stepped in from their reserves. Even through injuries, Ancelotti stuck with relatively similar players in his starting 11, rotating some in and out. But for the most part, he stuck with his usual same players. And whether it contributes to their poor form remains to really be seen, but like I said, Ancelotti tends to stick to the same players. Now for Chelsea, speaking of sticking with similar players, we were rolling with a 4-3-3. Edward Mendy in goal. We're going with our usual strong defense. Bencho on the left, Thiago Silva and Kurt Zouma, the center back duo, and on the right, Reece James. Our midfield, I'm going with Havertz, Conte, and Mason Mount. And up top, if he can start, Christian Pulisic on the left, Giroud, who I think is going to play a huge role in this game, up top, and Timo Werner on the right. Obviously, Pulisic on his natural left. Timo Werner is very versatile, so you can easily throw him on the right, and he'll do well. Now for our bench, I went with Kepa, Christensen, Azpilicueta, Gilmour, Jorginho, Kovacic, and Abraham. Obviously, the big one there, Gilmour. I think he deserves a chance at least on the bench in this game. Whether Lampard really wants to rotate or not remains to be seen, but Gilmour at least deserves a chance on the bench. He did really well against Krasnodar, and I think he should be rewarded for his efforts in that game. Now in terms of recent form for Everton, they most recently had their 1-1 draw versus Burnley. I believe they had to score a last-minute goal in order to even scrape out that draw. They lost 1-0 to Leeds. They beat Fulham 3-2. They lost Manchester United 3-1, and they lost to Newcastle 2-1. All these games in the Premier League. So obviously in the last 5 games, Everton have not been great. They have 1 win, 1 draw, 3 losses. They've been in poor form recently, and there's even more losses dating before the Newcastle game. So they've not been in great form. They're not doing well in recent times. and it's an opportunity that Chelsea can take advantage of, can and should take advantage of. Now, speaking of Chelsea, our most recent game was the 1-1 draw versus Krasnodar in the Champions League. Before that, a 3-1 win over Leeds in the Premier League, a 4-0 win over Sevilla in the Champions League, a 0-0 draw with Spurs in the Premier League, and a 2-1 win over Rennes in the Champions League, a last-minute winner from that one. In terms of most recent matchups between these two teams, Chelsea most recently beat Everton back in March, just before the lockdown happened. It was a big 4-0 win. The reverse fixture last season was a big 3-1 win for Everton over Chelsea back in December of 2019. And in the 2018-2019 season, Everton beat Chelsea 2-0 for their final matchup of that season. Now, in terms of Chelsea's approach in this game, Everton's defense in recent games has let them down. That's what's really led to this poor run of form. And I would say more so they're defending as a team. I'd say you can't completely pinpoint it on simply their defenders. I feel like as a whole, their team hasn't really been able to defend well. Plus, they typically allow other teams to play how they want to play without disrupting them. And they really struggle when they allow these teams to do that. Like, you might think that's obvious, if you allow the other team to do whatever they want, they're going to dominate you. But that's just one of the keys to trying to beat another team, is disrupting their flow. You disrupt their flow, you disrupt what they're used to, and you take advantage of when they make mistakes because they're playing a game that they're not used to. Or another way you can approach it is trying to essentially use their strengths against them. So like a team like Liverpool are very strong on the counter, and that means they're going to press high, they're going to throw numbers forward. Now Liverpool are good at keeping their shape, but you can take advantage of those numbers that are getting pressed forward and throw numbers on the counter and try to hit them hard to smash and grab a goal. Now obviously you can combine those two, but typically you see one or the other. You either counter their counter essentially, or you counter their strengths rather, or you try to disrupt their normal flow of play, or you just play your game. That's also a very valid option. A lot of teams do that. They just try to play their own game and then leave it up to the other teams to try and disrupt them, and then they'll adjust accordingly. But like I mentioned with the Liverpool example, I think that's how Everton will likely approach this game to try and beat Chelsea. Is they'll likely wait for Chelsea to push numbers forward, to get a little overconfident, and to a point where we might have like 7 players forward and only like 3 defenders back, and they're gonna try and hit us hard in the counter, throw numbers forward, and try to get at us quick, and like I said, get those quick smash and grab goals. For us, Calvert-Lewin is going to be a dangerous target man and finisher. If we can't contain the creativity of the wingers, the pace that they're going to come at us on counters, Calvert-Lewin has proved that he can score. Despite their poor form, he's still 11 goals in 11 games. I mean, a lot of them, to be fair, did come earlier in the season, but in this run, he's still scoring despite their losses. So he's still a dangerous target man, dangerous finisher that we need to keep an eye out. Now, I said only the wingers because I think that Doucouré and Allen will likely be too busy providing a block in front of their defense, who's going to be third in the back. I think Doucouré and Allen will stay back more, not so much support the offense, more so support the defense, which could open up some avenues for our midfield to come straight down the center. But more than likely, it's going to be a little difficult with essentially probably 5 defenders usually in that area. But like I mentioned, playing 3 in the back, the outside areas, there's going to be a lot of space. So for the likes of Chilwell, James, Pulisic, Werner, assuming they start, could be very huge. And the way they combine and work off of each other and get crosses into the box, I think we can really benefit from that space out wide. That's why I also said Giroud should start this game, because he's one of the best target men, period, like ever in history. Like, that guy's amazing at getting to crosses. So I think that he definitely needs to start this game, because we are going to take advantage of those wide areas. And Giroud did really well against Leeds. He did really well against Leeds to find those, to get to the end of a lot of crosses. He just was unfortunate that he only got 1 goal. He could really only put 1 at a point where he scored. So with that being said, Giroud definitely deserves a start in this game. We've been great from dead ball situations this season, whether it's crosses, whether it's free kicks, whether it's corners. We've been doing really well. So I think that Giroud definitely needs to start, and a lot of that's going to come from the wide areas, I think. I really do think that the wide areas is going to be crucial in breaking Everton down. Now, Everton can obviously hit us on the counter, like I said earlier, but we can put the game away before they even have an opportunity to hit us on the break. We can honestly hit them quickly before they even have a chance. The thing is it might take us a second to warm up with crosses and stuff. There have been games where at the beginning they're just not too accurate. They're just not too well placed. So we need some time to warm up. So we might not score right away, but I do think eventually as our crosses warm up, we'll be able to break down Everton. Now in this game, it'll be a bit interesting to see whether Lampard chooses to go 100% in both these games, both meaning Everton and Wolves, which I think we should, or if we'll just have one eye on the Wolves matchup and kind of do a little bit of rotating, and also the subs he makes in this game. For me, I think we should go 100% in both these games because we're only 2 points behind Liverpool and Spurs, who are at the top of the table. We're equal at the top of the table. Obviously, Spurs at the top by virtue of their goal differential, but I do think that we need to try and keep up with them. December is a crucial month. This is where the best is separated from the rest. This is where your true title contenders show their colors. This is where they prove. This is where we find out who's really challenging for the title this season. Is after that midway point at 19 games. That's when we really know who's getting relegated and who's going up. Obviously, you've had like the Great Escape and stuff like that, but typically whoever's in the relegation zone is still there by the end of the season. Typically, whoever's at the top is around there by the end of the season. So this is a huge period of games for us. Obviously, it's game after game after game after game, and it's huge that we come out with wins and keep up with Liverpool and Tottenham, assuming that they continue their form, which I think they will. We need to keep up with them. Now, with all that being said, my final score prediction, I'm going with a 3-0 scoreline. I think at the very least, we should be keeping a clean sheet in this game. I think we can. I think it's very doable. We can keep a clean sheet as long as we get a good press going. We prevent too many chances from Everton, and I think our defense will be able to stroll. They'll get challenged here and there, but for the most part, our press should be able to pin Everton back, keep them back, and allow our offense to get going. I think we could hit them 2 or 3 times before the first half even ends, and it's likely that the goals will come a bit later in the first half. Like I mentioned, it might take us a second to warm up with their crosses and stuff like that, coming out wide and coming in. I think we need to hit them with that kind of pace from out wide, not just crosses, but also passes in. If we choose to not go through the air, to go through the ground from the outside in, we need to be quick. We need to be really quick, or else Everton are going to be able to readjust. Their wingers are going to be able to get back, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to break them down. We need to have some pace in that if we choose not to go through the air and to go through the ground. Like I said, 3-0, I think at the very least we should be keeping a clean sheet in this game. But with all that being said, I want you guys, like I mentioned earlier, to go down to the comment section down below. Let me know your lineups, whether you try to predict what Lampard's thinking or you give your own preferred lineups. Either way is cool. Let me know how you think Chelsea should approach this game against Everton and what your final score predictions are. And like I mentioned earlier, also, while you're down there, hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the video. Please check out the socials in the description. My Twitter is @BlueHermit1. Instagram is @BlueHermit_. Please share socials with our friends, family. Everybody know, let the people know Blue Hermit's where it's at, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.